This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Luke Sylvia and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic! What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is November 3rd, 2022. Jonathan Osborne here. Tonight, I am joined by producer Kevin. Luke is moving tonight. Kevin, what's up, bro?
Jonathan, listeners, viewers of the Sixth Man Show, greetings. Doing very well. Excited to be back on the show. It's been a couple weeks, so looking forward to talking some Orlando Magic basketball and all the ups and downs therein. It's been a wild first couple of weeks, huh? You know,
some more downs than ups, and we're coming up on 24 hours removed from our last loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder. We're going to break all of that down. I think we're definitely in better spirits tonight than we would have been if we had to record last night. I was in a dark place last night, man. I got to tell you. My wife was like, "Are you like coming to bed anytime soon?" And I'm like, "I'm just furious. I couldn't stop thinking about that loss last night."
Yeah, that was rough. Definitely the roughest. Like before that, it was the Detroit game. For me, that was the roughest one because I mean, we should have won that game. There's a lot of games we should have won, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, against OKC, man, that game was. I mean, that was stealing defeat from the jaws of victory. You know, that was rough.
It was rough. Kevin, I don't know. You probably know this. But isn't this weekend, aren't we falling back this Sunday?
It is this
I'm excited
week,
for that. How do you feel about falling back? Do you look forward to that? Are you a spring forward kind of guy?
No, I'm not a spring forward kind of guy, but I do enjoy the falling back thing. Although now that I say this out loud, wasn't there this whole talk about them getting rid of like the time changes and stuff? I don't know if this is still happening, right? We're still falling back. I think we are.
I'm pretty sure
it is. My calendar says
it
is. Yeah, my calendar says it is. So I'm going to pretend that I'm going to gain an hour of sleep on Saturday night. So I'm excited about that.
Gaining the hour of sleep is great. And then I know there's a lot of people that hate that it starts to get darker earlier, which I agree with generally speaking. But to me, when it's dark by 6:30, it just feels more like the holidays. So I kind of look forward to that. Get you in that kind of vibe. Bonfires, s'mores, getting ready for Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Right, absolutely. For this part, like for our part of the world, the southern part of the United States, that's kind of the sign of the holidays, as opposed to northern parts. Just when it gets really freaking cold, that's when it's the holidays. So
true.
To each his own.
And depending on where you are up north, like I know in New Jersey by my brother, it's dark by like 4:45.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's, people get seasonal depression when it gets dark outside. We get seasonal depression from the Orlando Magic. So let's talk about that, Kevin. So since our last episode, just one game this week, which the Magic lost. So they're 0-1 on the week right now. They're 1-7 on the season, which is the worst record in the East. It is tied for the worst record in the league with the Houston Rockets, who trail the Clippers by 3 at halftime. They're currently playing, when we're recording this, about a little bit after 9:15 Wednesday night. So who knows? When you guys are listening to this, the Magic might have the absolute worst record in the league, or they'll have the second worst record in the league. We don't know just yet. Looking at the offensive and defensive rating on the season, Kevin, the Magic have an offensive rating of 106.3, which, if you're not familiar with offensive and defensive rating, the offensive rating is just how many points per 100 possessions the Magic are scoring, which is 106.3, which ranks 27th in the league. And they have a defensive rating, so how many points per 100 possessions are they giving up, which is 111.6, which ranks 17th in the league. So they're steadily kind of creeping up. When we recorded this, the last episode on Sunday, they were 18th in the league. So just kind of climbing up very slowly here. And their overall net rating is minus 5.3 or negative 5.3, which is good for 26th in the league. So we're not absolutely the worst team in the league if you're looking at net rating. They are 9th in free throw rate. It's fun for me to just continue to track that because for the better part of the last decade, the Magic have been towards the bottom of the league in free throw rate. And Paolo Banchero literally overnight has changed that. It's just remarkable from the rookie. Looking at the injury report, we got Jalen Suggs back in the lineup on Tuesday after he missed 5 games with a right ankle sprain. And then Cole Anthony, who they said it was an oblique injury. Now that's been classified as an oblique tear. And I said I saw him wearing the abdominal wrap when I was at the game last week. Markelle Fultz, Gary Harris, Mo Wagner, Jonathan Isaac all remain out, Kevin.
Yep, and there's an addition to that as well from the OKC game. If you remember Terrence Ross as well.
Thank you. Yep. Tried to forget that, but there it is.
Yeah, went out with a knee contusion pretty early. Didn't play very many minutes, but didn't come back. And he was actually streaming on Twitch tonight, and I got to catch a couple minutes of that. And he didn't commit to playing Golden State. He said legitimately like it was painful, and it still is today. And he's like, who knows? It might be better by tomorrow. We'll see. So hopefully he's good to go against Golden State. I have a feeling we could use his offensive spark against those guys, and we'll talk about them later.
Yeah, doesn't sound very promising, but we'll see what happens. So really quickly before we dive deep into this travesty at the hands of the Oklahoma City Thunder, we do have a Patreon channel where we have a ton of, I think we have 83 different individuals who partner with us every single month. 83 is a lot. 83 is a lot. It's really crazy to say that, but yeah, they help us every single month. You can find us at patreon.com/the Six Man Show. Starting at $2 a month, you can support the show, or you can choose additional, higher tiers that come with additional benefits, like access to our Discord channel, which has been really active over the past several weeks. We have exclusive Zoom calls every month with our Hall of Fame tier patrons, where you can just hang out with us for an hour, talk about the team, kind of get behind the scenes updates, some things that we don't always share with everybody out in the public. Sometimes we just share things with our patrons. That's for them to know and you potentially to find out. And then we shout out our brand new patrons each episode. So this episode, Hafrican, I did not name him this. He named it himself. From what I can tell, he has an Orlando Magic jersey with Hafrican stitched on the back. He joined our Hall of Fame tier. So big shout out to our boy Hafrican. Don't feel 100% comfortable saying that, but that's his name. And we're riding with the boy Hafrican, and Kevin is going to shout out our Hall of Fame tier patrons.
That's right. And shouting out the Hall of Fame patrons today. And you know how I do it. I like to mix it up. We're going newest to oldest. All right. So we are kicking it off with Hafrican, and I'm proud to say it, Hafrican. Then we got Junior Barus, Gear 95 Shred, ESPN really sucks. Joe Rothfuss, Chad 3045, Brandon Grace, Ty, Mr. TV, Andy, Cannibalism, Caleb Pete, wow, Destined for Greatness, yeah, Jose Esquilin, Edmund Ligon, I guess, there we go, Bill Fulton, Juan Giraldo, Fuchsia, Eric Lopez, Breadhead, Teddy Sylvia, Goody 93, Nate Donnelly, Bobby Skinner, Dutto 15, Danimal, Drum, Lil Penny, Mr. Mikey, Dylan Holden, Migzors, Pierre A, Woot Woot, Mo Bamba, Yo Mama, The Distract, Ryan Singh, Franz Godefischo, Michael Salapong, Michael Martin, Wiffle, Gabe Gaines, Bailey, Julio, Magic Player History, Normal, I always say that wrong, Normal, Jonathan Borges, Carson Tulo, Armin, and Court Cousins. Holy smokes, that's insane. There's a lot going on there. But thank you to our Hall of Fame patrons and to all of our patrons. We really appreciate it.
We're barely getting through that these days, but we appreciate everyone's support. Again, you can find us at patreon.com/the Six Man Show if you want to help financially support the show. Let's talk about Tuesday at Oklahoma City. So, Kevin,
do we have to?
We have to. So I know you and I feel differently about this, at least going into the game, about whether or not this game still should have been on national TV. And to me, I truly think every team in the NBA, there's only 30 teams. Every team should get at least one nationally televised game. I'm not talking about NBA TV. Like, give us an ABC game, give us an ESPN game, or give us a TNT game. I don't care what it is. Out of the 4 teams that play on TNT on a given night, you can put one stinker in there. I promise you it will be okay. But each team should get a nationally televised game. But as everyone now knows, as soon as Chet Holmgren suffered that Liz Frank injury to his foot, they could not get the Oklahoma City-Orlando game off of this slate quick enough. Now, hindsight is 2020, and now I am relieved that this game was not on TNT because it was an ugly, ugly, ugly game.
Charles Barkley would have torn us apart in the post game.
Man, Ernie, I gotta tell you, man, this game is just terrible. This is terrible to watch these two teams knuckleheads.
Some of the worst basketball I've ever seen. I took a nap for the fourth. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. Sorry, Charles. We didn't mean to.
We love Charles.
We love Charles. Love Charles. But I mean, yeah, let's just talk about the first half in this one. So the Magic found themselves down by as much as 10 midway through the second quarter. They finished the first half on a 19-6 run to finish the half up 66-63. Really, it was the starters that went on that run. The game was pretty close. Starters came out in the first half. That bench unit started to let go of the rope a little bit. OKC gets out to that 10-point lead. The starters start to come back in the last 5 minutes of the second quarter again, go on that run, and then they get off to a really good start in the third quarter. I believe they were up by as much as 14. And then midway through the third quarter, as the bench unit starts to come in, you start to sub some guys out. That lead starts to collapse a little bit. You go into the fourth, up 3. So you were up 14. That lead gets down to 3 heading into the third quarter. And then over the next, what was that? 4.5 minutes, the lead goes from 3 back up to 11. You're up 104-93 with 7:26 to go. Wendell hits that 3, Kevin, and I'm feeling really confident. The Magic are now up double digits. The starters are back in. We saw how well they played in the second quarter and in the third quarter. And you're like, all right, 7.5 to go. We've got an 11-point lead. We've got some time to build on this. But unfortunately, over the course of the next 7.5 minutes, the Magic miss 11 straight field goals. They miss all of their 11 field goals to miss the game. They have Wendell Carter and Wendell Carter hit all 4 of the Magic's free throws down the stretch, not Chuma Okeke. And the Magic end up losing this game 108-116. So in a span of 7.5 minutes, you go from up 11 to losing by 8 and missing 11 straight field goal attempts to lose the game on the road to the Oklahoma City Thunder.
7.5 minutes without a field goal. I don't consider myself to be a basketball analytics expert, but even I know that is not good. That is a recipe for disaster.
Kevin.
Thank you. Yeah, this is why people listen to the show. Wow, like where do we start? I kind of want to start with the good, right? We'll talk about the bad. I just want to Wendell or Wendaddy, as some people on the show call him. Like this was a Daddy Dell night. As Luke would say, like Wendell was looking like the glimpses that we saw last season of Wendell Carter Jr. Like he was great, part of that starting unit that was really good for most of this game. As you said, the starting unit built a couple leads over the course of the game, especially there in that third quarter. Really felt like didn't feel like it. We were in the driver's seat. We were in the driver's seat until 8 minutes left in the game, really. So he was great. Bol Bol, I thought, was great in parts, right? The bad stuff we saw was, I think he had 6 turnovers last night, which is not great, obviously. But showed flashes of good there. It's, all right, now we're going to talk about the bad. Okay. That stretch, the last 8 minutes was terrible. And it's hard because the starters were in for almost all of it, if not all of it. The unit that had played so well in the first 3 quarters just kind of fell apart. Franz was, and I don't like talking bad about any of the guys, but especially like Franz is, my guy. Like I love Franz Wagner. Everyone does, but like he was rough in that fourth quarter. Turnovers.
You can say bad.
I can't though. Like those words they don't just roll off the tongue for me. I'm a homer.
2 of 7. 2 of 7 in the fourth quarter. 2 points, 2 turnovers, a rebound, an assist. 0 of 2 from behind the arc. I believe at least one of those was like a wide open look. He was a minus 11 plus minus in the fourth quarter.
In the fourth, yeah. I mean, Wendell had 12 in the fourth, and everyone else it was 4 for Franz, 2 for Paolo, 2 for Jalen. That's it. The rest of the team combined for 8 points. That's just not good enough. But yeah, the Franz, 2 turnovers, 2 fouls. He just didn't look in control. He looked, I don't know. Last year, especially, really, it's actually, no, that's so ironic because we were talking about earlier. Yesterday was November 1st, the Oklahoma City game. A year ago, November 1st was the game in Minneapolis where Franz, kind of announced himself to the world. And how did he do that? In the fourth quarter, he just literally took over that game, if you remember. I don't remember how many points he scored, maybe 13 or something like that in the fourth. but
yeah, he
including
and
that.
Cole went crazy. He had
That's right.
the huge dunk.
Huge dunk. He also had a big three. So all of that to say, there were a lot of times last year where the fourth quarter, Franz kind of like kicked it into a gear and was in total control. We haven't seen that. Not just against OKC, but so far in this season. Like there hasn't been, to me, long stretches, like an entire quarter where I felt like Franz is in complete control of this game. And the OKC game was unfortunately another example of that. So I don't know, man. It's hard to pick one thing to like really harp on. Obviously, turnovers was a big thing over the course of the whole game, not just in the fourth quarter. 25 total turnovers, I believe, on the night. Like it was just very sloppy with the ball. I know OKC plays fast. I know OKC, is really handsy and just tries to get all over the ball so that they can play fast. But all in all, man, that game was there to be won, and you just squandered it. I mean, just completely just dropped the ball. So I don't know. What are your thoughts from this game?
I mean, like, now we're just seeing a trend. Luke was talking about it in our group chat last night about the fact that this team just, can't close out wins. Like, you just look at the close losses right now. Detroit, Atlanta. I mean, the Knicks, you were kind of in it, but not completely. Charlotte, luckily you blow them out. Close loss to Boston at home. Close loss to Oklahoma City on the road. Even the Dallas game to a certain extent, you felt like you had a chance down the stretch in that one. So
yeah, if I may, really quick. Sorry, yeah. I was just going to say I pulled these numbers earlier for us. We were talking about it. The Magic have had a second half lead in every game except for the Cleveland game. They've been tied or led in the fourth quarter of 4 of their losses: Detroit, Atlanta, Boston, OKC. All 4 of those games they were either tied or had a lead at some point in the fourth quarter. So yeah, it's literally every game except Cleveland. They've been in the second half and just unfortunately just couldn't get the job done.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, we're just seeing a trend, which is really unfortunate. We're also seeing a trend, with Franz Wagner. I mean, we talked about his struggles in the fourth quarter, but just really, if you look at the game, 20 points on 18 shots, 8 of 18 from the floor, 44%. 7 assists. So like from a playmaking aspect, he had a really nice game, but he just doesn't. Just like, to me, just doesn't look as good as I thought he was going to look. And maybe a lot of that was unrealistic expectations and how his game was going to translate from Eurobasket, to the NBA regular season. But he just seems like he's treading water right now. Like he's just doing enough, to not quite just like totally overwhelmed, but you can tell that he's playing really frustrated right now, especially from behind the arc. We saw him knocking shots down in Eurobasket. I know that we've talked about, it's a different play style over there. The 3-point line is closer. But right now, I believe he's shooting like somewhere around 20% behind the arc to start the season. I don't know if you can take a look at that and confirm that while I kind of go through the rest of this year.
Sure.
But yeah, Franz is struggling behind the arc. Paolo Banchero, second straight game in a row where I felt like he really wasn't as aggressive as we saw through the first 6 games.
Franz is 19.4%.
Yeah, so yeah, below 20%. So it's horrible. It is what it is, and he's getting good looks. It's not like all of these are these step backs that he was hitting on Giannis in Eurobasket. Like he's getting wide open 3-point attempts and just bricking them. He's just missing them right now. I don't know how much of that is just his legs from bringing the ball up every single possession. Large stretches of the game, he's guarding one of the other team's better offensive players, chasing some of these guards around. So I don't know if it's his legs, if he's just out of rhythm right now, if he's in a slump. Slumps do happen. I'm not, on a scale of 1 to 10, my concern level for Franz right now is at like a 5 or a 6. I'm not overly concerned. I think he's going to get it right, especially once we start to get guys back and some of this offensive load is taken off of him. But again, back to Paolo, just settling, for jumpers right now, not really taking advantage of some of the matchups that he has. There was a lot of contact. Dort was guarding him for a decent amount of possessions last night, and I felt like a few of those could have been blocking fouls on Dort. But Paolo just kind of taking that contact, not really embracing it, just letting Dort kind of move him off of where he's trying to get to, his spots on the floor and not attacking the rim like we saw through the first, 6 games. I mean, 3 free throw attempts in this one. I think he's been averaging like somewhere around like 8 or 9 per game. So that was frustrating because it's like, man, Paolo, I mean, fourth quarter, he was 1 of 5 from the floor, but it's just like, we've got to get this kid, more involved. He had a crazy baseline turnaround. I think it was over Dort in that second half. and it was like, man, this kid is just looking amazing right now. That's like superstar level shot making. So each of these games, you see some good, you see some bad. I mean, Wendell Carter Jr. was incredible the entire night. I feel like this was the first game where he was like the Dell that we thought we were going to see for the better part of this season. And some of it was matchup based. Oklahoma City just doesn't have a guy that can match up with him. But like Bol Bol. Bol was incredible in the first half, really throughout the game. 13 points, 12 rebounds, 4 blocks. But you mentioned the 6 turnovers. Jalen Suggs, first game back, missing 5 games, 9 points in 28 minutes, 3 of 14 from the floor, 1 of 9 from the 3-point line. The shots were just not falling. He looks like he's trying to force things, trying to get all of those 5 games back in one night. And it was just rough, like just up and down the lineup, apart from RJ Hampton, who I felt maybe you should have had in that fourth quarter, potentially over Jalen Suggs. I know they were going for Jalen's defense, but RJ was playing really, really well the other night. Second game in a row that he's played really well. But yeah, I mean, Wendell Carter, and then it was just kind of everybody else in this one. And you stopped going to Wendell in large stretches to end this game. You got a few free throw attempts, but just felt like we should have been taking advantage of those matchups, each offensive possession down the floor. But I talked about this in the post game last night, Kevin, but up 11 on the road in the fourth quarter against, I know they're 4-3 on the season right now, Oklahoma City. But if you just look at the rosters, this is a winnable game for the Magic just from the opening tip. And you've got a double-digit lead on the road against a team of this caliber. You've got to come away with a win. And you can blame Mosley. You can blame the guys that were on the floor. Overall, it was you said it perfectly last night, an epic choke job by the Magic.
Yeah. And there's obviously lots of blame to go around, like you said. But I do want to give some credit. SGA is good, man.
Yeah.
Gilgeous-Alexander is really good. And it's like, there's been, not even rumors, there's been talk about, like, from Magic fans over the last year or two about, SGA on the Magic. And I always just go, whatever, but every time I watch him against us, I'm like, whoo, man, imagine
the
that
reason
guy.
that I shake my head is like, he's not going anywhere.
No, there was talk, like, once Chet went down, like, SGA wants to probably win sooner. I don't know. Who knows?
He looked pretty happy last night killing us.
He looked great, and that's the thing. Like, I also don't think he's going anywhere, but, like, that dude. So all I have to say, give him credit. He was fantastic throughout the night, but also during the fourth quarter. Like, he smelled there was blood in the water, and, like, he took some really difficult shots at times. Then also he had some really easy shots, unfortunately. But yeah, and it's tough, even because, like, we had this lead, 7.5 minutes to go. They're climbing back into it slowly but surely, right? But the problem was, like, we were still in this game with even a couple minutes left, right? And I think it was you. Yeah, you tweeted last night when Dort had that wide open 3. It was just what disappointed me, I think, from that moment was, and I'm probably reading too much into it. We always do. But this team has been known to fight. Like, the whole Mosley era has just been competing no matter what the score is. That was one of the few times where you could look around the floor and in my mind, again, overthinking it. Once he got the ball, was wide open, it was just like game over. Like, you could just sense the mood. Like, they knew it was going to go in. They knew it was game over.
Attempt to contest it at all.
That's right. Yeah. And so that was disappointing in addition to everything else. And again, it's one game out of 82. You don't want to harp on it too much, but it's the most recent one. And so it really stings, especially against Oklahoma City, a team that isn't really supposed to be that good. I know we're hurt. I know we've been on the road a lot. All of those caveats. You were up 11 with 8 minutes to go, 7.5 minutes to go. You just got to win, like you said. So disappointing, but home stretch, coming up here. Hopefully the team can, find their legs and maybe turn some things around.
Well, before the game, we made a little wager with our Blue Wire contingent, the Oklahoma City, the Uncontested podcast, where the loser would buy T-shirts, from the other podcast shop, essentially, and wear them on their podcast. So in the next week or couple of weeks here, we're going to be wearing some Pokemon T-shirts for Alexei Pokashevsky, the shirts are pretty cool. Like,
shirts are really cool.
Yeah. It could be a much worse shirt that we would have to wear on the podcast. But when you see that, do not be alarmed. But yeah, SGA, man, in 33 minutes, 12 of 18 from the floor, 10 of 11 from the free throw line. 6 assists, 4 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 blocks, 34 points. He was just getting his spots, and like he got 2 feet in the paint, and that turnaround every single time it was nothing but net.
Even with a bigger guy on him,
good.
like Paolo,
even with Bol,
right? Yeah, it was, and Bol, he hit one on
nothing
Bol,
we could do.
Yeah,
and he's just so fast that like most guys, Bol is able to recover and kind of chase down at the rim, and he's just so fast. Just it was layup after layup for him. So he's really good. Oklahoma City, I mean, like you go down like their lineup, they've got some talent now. Like Dort, Jalen Williams, I like a lot. Jeremiah Robinson, Earl, Giddey, SGA, Trey Mann, Ousmane Dieng, Alexei Pokashevsky. Like they've got a lot of talent. Mark Daignault has these guys playing really, really hard. They're a well-coached team. And, we thought the Magic were a well-coached team, and I still think they are, but it's frustrating that, 8 games in now, it just seems like, the attention to detail isn't quite where it needs to be, because the margin of error for this team is so small that everything has to go right if they're going to win these games. There will be competitive games. Like the Magic are, I think, rarely going to get blown out unless they just completely let go of the rope here sometime soon. But they will be in every game just off of their talent level and the way that they compete every single night. But we've got to figure out the turnovers. 24 turnovers, just really unacceptable. You're just shooting yourself in the foot, and it's just like night after night after night, we're talking about the turnover problem, just every single game. And yeah, we've made a big deal about getting a point guard and, like that guy, coming back. We're talking about Markelle Fultz and him making a big difference, but he's just one guy. Like even if he has a ridiculously high, usage rate, he's only going to be finishing like 1 out of every 4, 1 out of every 5 plays for the Magic, whether it's an assist or a shot attempt, turnover, like whatever the case may be. Everybody else has got to get it together. We cannot continue to have games where Bol Bol has 6 turnovers. I know this was his season high tonight, but Paolo with 4 turnovers, Jalen with 4 turnovers, Chuma with 3 turnovers. Like it's got to stop. The Magic, unfortunately, are not good enough to win games unless they're doing all of the small things.
Yeah, and I expect a team like the Magic to have a higher number of turnovers than other teams in the league because of their youth, and again, right now, because of the lack of guards. However, that number itself is too high, and it's too high because so many of those turnovers were unforced. It's not like they were trying to get something going and it was, just a miscalculation, like a good idea, just, didn't execute, whatever. No, there were several lazy passes, several, like guys stepping out of bounds. Chuma stepped out of bounds. There's guys, not handling the ball well. There's guys
or just dribbling the ball off their foot,
or a lack of awareness that you're getting picked from behind, like those types of things. Just, and I guess that is a forced turnover. But the other things, all those combined, are things that they just have to be better at. And again, I fully expect this team to be on the higher end of turnovers in the league. I fully do. That's what happens with young teams, especially ones that are trying to play faster. Although technically speaking, statistically speaking, we're not actually playing that fast right now. But all that, I expect us to be high in turnovers, but right now it's out of control. You're right. It has got to be figured out. And Markelle is not the answer to it. He will be a help to that, but he will not fix, like you said, the problems that we're seeing from literally the entire rest of the roster right now. That's a big concern. I definitely agree. A lot of other things right now are things I think will get better. But that's been definitely the biggest red flag so far, and something that has to get cleaned up.
So far through 8 games, Magic are 22nd in the league in terms of turnovers per game with 15.6.
Wow.
Looking like you're tied with the Indiana Pacers, young team, Houston Rockets, young team, Portland Trailblazers, Sacramento Kings, young team, Utah Jazz, young team, Golden State, San Antonio, young team. So like you look at the bottom of the league, like it's a lot of the young teams, like you kind of alluded to, but you're averaging 15 and a half roughly, and then you have a game where you have 24. Like you're just not going to win games like that. And then in terms of like 3-point percentage right now, the Magic are 27th in the league, 31% from behind the arc so far through 8 games, which isn't going to get it done. Getting guys back. Let's get Terrence Ross healthy. Let's get Gary Harris healthy. Guys like Franz Wagner, really just need to start shooting the ball better. We've talked about Jalen Suggs, Caleb Houston, who's been fine. But I think maybe we thought his shooting, maybe was a little bit overrated. I know he didn't shoot that great of a percentage at Michigan. I think it was around, like 32, 33%, if I remember correctly. He's going to grow into being a shooter. Mo Bamba hasn't shot the ball well. Chuma hasn't shot the ball well. So there are things that, like, you think at some point you're going to see the pendulum kind of swing the other way in terms of these guys being roughly league average 3-point shooters. But like the turnovers absolutely needs to get cleaned up. The rebounding has been better the last few games. Now we talked about Wendell. They just really did not have a guy to match up with Wendell or Bol Bol, for that conversation. Both of those guys with 12 rebounds, Paolo with 8 rebounds. So that's what 32 of your 37. 32 out of your 49 rebounds. Excuse me. I can't read. But yeah, the rebounding has been better, but Mosley talked about it after the post game. You could tell that he was super frustrated with just the amount of turnovers. Like he said, that was the game. And they asked him, what was your message to the team after the game? He said, 24 turnovers. You cannot have it. Especially Clifford would have just flat out came and said, we are not good enough to win with 24 turnovers. And I'm like, Mosley is becoming more and more frustrated after each one of these losses. I'm waiting for a Steve Clifford post game where Mosley comes in, speaks for 45 seconds, says thanks, and walks off, because it's just not acceptable. They talked all off season, all preseason about leveling up. Well, let's kind of see that. I don't want to read too deeply into what we're seeing. It's just 8 games, but part of me is like, maybe were we drinking our own Kool-Aid a little bit? We were talking about, let's get these guys healthy. We won 22 games last year without some key contributors. Everybody's going to be better. We're getting some guys back. Everybody's hyping us up. We got the number 1 overall pick in Paolo Banchero. We see how good he is. We see how good Bol Bol has been in preseason and training camp. Man, the Magic are going to come out and be really, really good. There's a difference between talking about that and actually doing it in the NBA. Nobody is going to give you anything. You're going to have to work for every single possession. And especially late in games in the fourth quarters, the Magic are really struggling, just learning how to win. And that's kind of what a young team goes through. Yeah,
and it's tough because you talk about being a small sample size, but at what point is the sample size big enough? Like we're at the 10%.
10 games.
Yeah,
10
we're at the
games
10%.
Is big enough. Give me 2 more games. We'll see.
I know, because it's an 82 game season. We're 8 games in. We're right at the 10% mark. We're 1/10 of the way through the season. Now, granted, I know all of the asterisks, right? I know that it's been a very challenging start of the season. 6 games on the road out of your first 8. I know we're missing a bunch of guys. So we can't pull too much from it, but I think there is still things that we can pull from, turnovers, 3-point shooting. Those are things that doesn't matter who's on the floor, individually, guys should take care of the ball better. Guys should be shooting the wide open threes better. So I don't know. Again, we're not going to take too much from it, but there's definitely some trends that are concerning, and hopefully we can get them turned around. When you talk about Mosley, though, Jonathan, we have this back and forth stuff on the group chat about Mosley. Okay, I am still very much a fan of Mosley. Not saying anyone else on the show is not a fan, but I'm saying I'm still backing him 100%.
Just to be clear. So am I. I don't want anybody to soundbite this and then throw it into something that it's not. I'm still 100. People that are asking for Mosley to be fired, just shut up.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't mean to hint that at all. Okay. Sometimes some people on the show question some of Mosley's intentions and stuff, and I'm still backing him. I'm we're all learning. He's learning. We're figuring things out. He's got a broken roster. All I have to say. What I do get really frustrated about, Jonathan, you feel like you need to defend yourself.
No. I'll have a rebuttal when you're done. I apologize.
Okay. I have to clarify though, no one on the show wants Mosley out. Okay. What is really frustrating me with Mosley right now is not using his challenges. That Wendell foul. Are you kidding me? That was an awful call. If you saw the game, you know what I'm talking about. If you didn't, literally Wendell put his arms behind his back and is backpedaling and gets called for the foul. It's stuff like that. It's just it's so painfully obvious. And I understand the idea of waiting, saving it for later. But in a moment like that where you can literally save the opposing team points, take points off the board.
I don't understand the idea behind saving the challenge, because 2 points at the beginning of the game is the same thing as 2 points at the end of the game.
I agree.
If you can save points at any point in the game, hit the frickin' buzzer.
I agree. 100%.
I understand you might get to the end of the game like, oh, I wish we had that. But if you can save 2 points in the first quarter, it's the same as saving 2 points at the end of the game.
If it is a guaranteed, like that one was a guarantee, like if that was reviewed, it was getting overturned. 100% chance. Like if you have one of those in the bag, like you have to take it, because you're right. Like even if you save it for a 50-50 call with 2 seconds left, it's a 50-50 call. You might not get it. But for those like surefire ones where you're going to save a foul on Wendell and you're going to save 2 points from OKC, you have to do it. And that's like the second or third time this season so far that something like that has happened early, in the first 2 or 3 quarters. It happened a couple times
last night. There was the Dort call and there was one earlier in the game that I know that we talked about it, but I'm forgetting what it was.
Yeah. And so I don't understand. Like, I'm Team Mosley. I love Mosley. I think he's great. He's been a great coach for this group. I want him to be here for a while, at least until we have, maybe some other ideas. But the challenges, it's killing me. It's killing me. So
you said one thing at the beginning of that I want to defend myself when we talk about his intentions. We're talking about like whether or not he's like actively making decisions to lose us games, and that would be coming from the front office. Mosley isn't like, oh, I'm going to sabotage this game tonight. It's Jeff that's like, hey, like Mosley, if you play Ignas Brazdeikis 38 minutes tonight, that wouldn't be the worst idea. We want to get him some reps. He hasn't played in Lakeland in a little while. That's the kind of things that I'm talking about. But yeah, Mosley has not been perfect. We've questioned some of his strategic decisions when it comes to rotations and staggering guys and not staggering guys. I think it's painfully obvious to anyone watching these games. There's not a reason that one of Paolo, Franz, or Wendell shouldn't be on the floor at all times. One of those 3 guys should be on the floor at all times, because without them, the offense can't do anything. At that point, you're hoping that Mo Bamba or Chuma Okeke hits an open 3, because that is the best looks that you are getting with those 3 guys off of the floor, and they're not hitting those shots right now. So the offense without those guys is essentially non-existent. So I think to all of us, we're still like, what is the thinking here? And I think it was Kobe Price asked him this after, or maybe it was in the pregame before the Charlotte game the other night, in Friday's game. Someone asked Mosley, like, what was the thinking behind like not staggering Paolo and Franz? And I don't remember exactly what he said, but I remember thinking, that's not an answer. Like, he just kind of skated around it, didn't give us a real answer. And I totally would have been fine if the explanation was, look, these are 2 guys that are going to be a massive part of our core moving forward and closing games. We want them to get as many reps on the floor together as possible. I would have been completely fine with that. But I think he tried to like give some kind of answer about like the flow and the rhythm of the game. And I was like, wait, what are you saying? You definitely did not answer his question. But the pregame availability is not somewhere where you can be like, hey, you didn't exactly, answer my question. Let me ask it again in another way. But so there are things that, some folks have been frustrated, and I have been critical of like schematic things, like the whole overhelping on guys on the other side of the floor who don't even have a foot in the paint yet, where we have the low man kind of coming 2 feet in the paint and leaving this guy open for a corner 3. We've seen that time and time again. But I don't want to harp on a guy too much that has literally never had a fully healthy roster in the, 90 games that he's coached for the Magic so far. I don't want to get like too critical of him when he's essentially coaching on one leg with one arm tied behind his back, and it has nothing to do with him. So let's get this team healthy. Let's give him like a full roster, give him like 20 games, and then we can really be like, okay, this guy is really good at this. He's not so good at these things. I'm not saying don't be critical, but calling for him to be fired way too early, in my opinion, and it's just unfounded.
Yeah, this isn't Brooklyn. We're not getting rid of our coach eight games in this season, Just saying.
And then hiring a guy that was just caught up in like a massive scandal and suspended for an entire year, but I digress. We didn't win this game, folks, but if we did, and keep this in mind for future wins, all Magic victories the next day, you can get 50% off your online order the next day with code MAGICWIN. This applies as long as you're within 150 miles of Orlando and as long as you are not 75 miles to Miami. You'll have to use the Miami win or Heat win or losers win or whatever they use down there if you're 75 miles of Orlando. But code Magic Win, 50% off Papa John's the next day following all Magic victories. This is a guy, Kevin, I tweeted this last night, that how dumb I was to think that this guy wasn't even going to be in the rotation this year. This is a guy who we haven't given his due credit. I think we've given him credit, but we haven't like had a whole conversation just about how good he's been through the first 8 games. He's already a fan favorite. People go crazy anytime he does anything, and for good reason. Kevin, let's talk about Bol Bol.
Wow. Yeah. So a guy, like you said, that, a lot of people at least didn't give him much of a shot, coming into the season. He was at best a mystery. Like at the very best, we were like, what are we going to get from Bol Bol this year, if anything, right? And wow, what a surprise, right? Like what an incredible feel-good story and just fun surprise. Like this dude is so fun to watch. And he's not just fun to watch. He's like actually making an impact whenever he's on the floor. Like it's just crazy. And the other thing is right now, statistically speaking, he's like getting better and better. I know we talked about the turnovers on Tuesday against Oklahoma City. Obviously, that's not great. Everything else though, his minutes are going up. His scoring is going up. His rebound is going up. He is leading the league in blocks right now. Total blocks, not blocks per game, but blocks. He's leading the league right now. He's fun to watch. Like he does things we've never seen before, literally ever. Terrence Ross, I talked about him streaming tonight. He mentioned Bol Bol as well, and he talked to us about it. When he came on our show, it was like he hyped him up. He's like, this dude is doing stuff in practice we've never seen before. Terrence is like, I've been playing basketball 20 years, whatever it's been. I've never seen someone do some of the stuff he's doing. And like he talked about it tonight on a stream, like him like, grabbing rebounds with one hand and like in one motion, like rebounding and like starting the dribble, like going to the fast break, like leading the break, like a 7'2" dude, like with 7'8" wingspan, like bringing the ball up the floor and then like Euro stepping, like literally taking 2 steps, from half court to the rim. It feels like dunking on guys. Like it's so wild, and it's not just like fun to watch. It's also like confusing. It's like in my mind when we've seen guys with similar frames in the past, like they're more of just kind of novelties. Like I know that sounds weird. I don't want to like put human beings in a box like that, but when we've seen guys with that frame, we're just like, oh, he's cool. He's got the length and, he blocks some shots, but, he's only going to play 10 minutes a game. But this dude's coming in right now, playing over 20 minutes the last several games, and he's contributing, and he's fun to watch, and he looks like a major part of the core of this team, which, again, 2 weeks ago, no one even had a clue that was going to be the case. So, like, wow. Like, and the stats, I know you have the stats, they're even crazier. Like, it's insane.
So at what point during the off season do you think John and Jeff were like, hey, I need to talk to you, like come in this room, like, and they just went into a broom closet and they're like, why would we draft Chet Holmgren? We have Chet Holmgren.
Whoa.
Like look at Bol. I mean, some of the things, and I'm not saying he's Chet Holmgren. I'm mostly kidding. When you talk about the things that Chet Holmgren is really good at, he's this massive guy, who can handle the ball like a guard. Bol Bol does that. He can shoot the ball. Bol Bol does that. His timing, his shot blocking is great. We just talked about the fact that Bol is, leading the league in total blocks. And I think he's 3rd in the league in blocks per game right now. I mean, like early returns, like you talked about it just now. I mean, it's 8 games. And something that we've talked a little bit like to start the season is this ever going to be a guy that can play 30 minutes a game, every night for 70 plus games a season? And I don't know, but you said his minutes are ticking up. Like to start the season, first game it was 17, then 11, then 14, then 20, 21, 26, 29. Last night he played almost 31 minutes. So it seems like the Magic are kind of ramping him up slowly to see exactly how much his body can withstand. Foot injuries on a big guy like you had at Oregon are always going to be a concern. So you really want to watch him and monitor him really closely. But he's just been absolutely special. I mean, we can talk about some of the raw numbers here. Through 8 games, he's averaging 11.1 points per game. He's averaging 7.4 rebounds. just over 2.5 blocks, almost 2 turnovers. He's shooting 65% from the floor, which is good for 6th in the NBA amongst players playing 20 minutes or more a game. He's shooting 33% from the three-point line, so just a little bit below league average, but for his career in the other, 53 games, he's averaging 37% from behind the arc for his career, so I think that'll come up a little bit. And then he's averaging 2.1 free throw attempts. He's shooting 82% from behind the free throw line right now. So early returns, the raw numbers are great. If we want to look at a little bit more like the analytical perspective, I'm getting these next stats from Cleaning the Glass. His differential. So, how many points per 100 possessions is the team better with Bol Bol on the floor? They're 12.1 points better on the floor with Bol Bol, which is good for 74th percentile. The points allowed per 100 possessions played, minus 11.7, which is 87th percentile for his position. The turnover, what percentage of opponents' possessions have ended in a turnover? He adds 3.3%, which is good for the 88th percentile. Offensive rebound percentage, the other team's offensive rebound percentage, how that changes with Bol on the floor. It goes down 5.2%, 83rd percentile. And then the team's free throw rate, or the opponent's free throw rate, with Bol Bol on the floor, minus 12.9, which puts him in the 96th percentile. So, everywhere you look, the analytics, Kevin, I think you were going to talk about the per 36 numbers with Bol, but it's everywhere you look, it's this guy is making an impact on the floor. It's not only the eye test. Sometimes that can be a little deceiving, but even if you look at some of these advanced analytics, he's making a real impact, seemingly every possession.
Yeah, and the per 36 numbers, it's kind of interesting because his minutes per game is actually going up. These per 36 numbers aren't as jaw dropping. Earlier in the season when he was playing 10 to 15 minutes, it was kind of crazy. Now they've kind of leveled out, as they typically do with guys that play more minutes. But so it's very similar. 16.2 points, 1.2 blocks, a steal, 2.8 assists, 7 rebounds. In those per 36. But what was really crazy, the stat that I kind of blew my mind today and maybe talks about the growth of Bol Bol, is the fact that over the course of his career, before he came to Orlando, he played in, 50, just about 50 games. Yeah, 53 games in his career before he came to Orlando. This season, he's played 8 games for Orlando. In those 8 games, he's had 21 blocks. That's an incredible clip. That's great. In his previous 53 games, he had 18 blocks. So this season, in 8 games, he already has 3 more blocks than he had in his entire NBA career before coming to Orlando. Insane. The stuff he's doing offensively is great and it's fun and everything, but his shot blocking is elite. I know it's 8 games. We'll see how much it levels out. But what you see right now, and not just the actual statistical blocks, he is impacting a ton of shots that aren't even on the box score. Changing shots. And so he's been a big impact on the defensive end. We've mentioned on the show, maybe we haven't, I've mentioned at least in the group chat, that he does get beat sometimes if he's got a quicker, player, a guard, perhaps that he's guarding. But with his length and his wingspan, he's able to recover so easily. You're okay almost with him, getting beat off the dribble with a guy because he's going to recover just fine. So crazy.
Unless it's SGA.
Unless it's SGA, good grief, yeah. But what's so crazy is the return on investment potential here. Because don't forget how we got this guy.
Yeah,
we gave Boston a future second round pick, and we got a second round pick back. We got Bol Bol, and we got cash. They literally paid us to take him, and now look what he's doing. Again, I know it's early. There's a lot of question marks still to be answered with him, but wow, what a story! And it's so fun.
Kev, before we look ahead to the kind of the games remaining this week, and then we'll start talking about the 2-week homestand, let's just talk a couple of minutes about Jalen Suggs, because I don't even feel like it's necessary to have the conversation just in a vacuum, but he's been such a hot topic, especially today, talking about Wednesday on Twitter. We talked about the fact that against Oklahoma City, he really struggled. And again, we can go through that. In 28 minutes, 9 points, 4 assists, 2 rebounds, 2 steals, a block, 4 turnovers. He was 3 of 14 from the floor. He was 1 of 9 from behind the arc and 2 of 2 from the free throw line. Are you panicking when it comes to Jalen Suggs?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like, I'm not even close. Am I frustrated at times with Jalen? Yes. Obviously, him missing open threes or whatever, that stinks. Maybe that'll get better. Maybe that won't. I think the frustrating stuff for me right now with Jalen is when I feel like he tries to force it too much, and especially like against OKC, there were 2 or 3 drives to the rim. I mean, we know how Jalen plays. He's very physical. He's a very determined guy. Like when he makes up his mind that he wants to get to the rim, he doesn't matter what it takes. Like, I'm going to go through whoever. I'm going to fall however I need to fall. Like, which for us as Magic fans, knowing his injury history over just the last 12 months with the team, it's just like every time.
Forget his injury history over the last 12 months. Look at his history over the last 2 weeks. He got injured on a play exactly like what we saw a handful of times last night against Oklahoma City, where he's like, I'm just going to be Mike Allstott on the 2-yard line trying to get into the end zone right now. And that's how he got hurt against Atlanta, just trying to bulldoze his way to the rim. And we saw probably like 3 or 4 of those attempts last night.
Yeah, and that's the part that frustrates me. It's just like, that's where I would love to see someone from our coaching staff like, hey, do that like once per game, maybe. This whole like doing this several times.
Pick your just spots.
Right. It's for me, it's like how much of it is him trying to, make something happen. Our offense right now isn't doing that well. Everybody knows that. At what point is that him just trying to make something happen? Is it him trying to get to the free throw line? Is it him just trying to assert himself into a game? Or is it just recklessness? Like where's the line there? And that's something that this Magic coaching staff needs to figure out with him, because it feels very reckless to me. Like, not just the whole him, his injury history and the concerns we have injury wise, but even just from a basketball play standpoint, like it's reckless. Like, more often than not, those are turning into turnovers for him. He's not getting the benefit of the whistle, which I guess we can talk about that. Like, there are some crazy non-calls last night that is just par for the course.
Every play that Jalen Suggs is involved with, if he's on his way to the rim, is a foul one way or the other. If you're going to call the offensive foul, fine. Like, we can have that discussion, but you need to call something. 2 guys smacking into each other on one player's path to the rim, it is a foul by definition. Call it one way or the other. I tweeted this. I've never seen somebody have so much contact throughout an NBA game and only get to the free throw line twice.
Yeah.
And officiating with the Magic is like, it's a whole nother conversation that we can have. That technical foul on Mo Bamba last night, we just played Dallas a couple of nights ago. We saw Luka do that probably, no exaggeration, 8 to 10 times, did not receive a single technical foul. And this has been a trend for the last 10 years for the Magic. This isn't some kind of homer take. Like, I've seen this again and again and again and again. The one thing I want to add about Jalen is he, as a quarterback, he should understand this. I've gone through this with Daniel Jones as my quarterback. The kid can run, right? But if you're a running quarterback, you have to realize as soon as you tuck that ball and you take off, you're now a runner, and those linebackers, those safeties can do whatever they want to you. So before you absorb that contact, you need to slide, not only for the health of yourself, but for the benefit of the entire team. So Jalen, we want him to have a very long and successful career in the NBA, but we also just need him to be on the floor for the Magic. Last year, in his rookie year, he missed, 34 games, and so far through 8 games, he's already missed 5. And I think you can contribute to some of that. I mean, you can't talk about him, breaking his hand against the 76ers. That was just Joel Embiid kind of being reckless. But some of the, the ankle injuries that he suffered last season, last night he took a hard fall, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, like Jalen is limping. Jalen is always limping. Like, that is his natural gait. But I'm also convinced that he's just always sore and always in pain because he's hitting the floor he's hitting the floor hard, like 3 to 4 times a night. And at some point, like, bro, we just need you to be healthy. So dial it back a little bit. And I think, to your point, some of it is reckless decision making where, like, bro, like, this is not the time to do that. And you probably weren't going to make that play anyway. So yes, you can live with, the shot making, I still am a hard believer. I think that's going to come around, but it kind of sucks because, yes, he's got 50 NBA games at this point. He's played 3 games this season, so 49 NBA games so far for Jalen Suggs. So a little bit more than a half of a season. I know he's in his second year right now, but a little bit more than half, or 50. Let's see, maybe 51, 49, 50, 51, 51 NBA games. Kevin is double checking me on that right now.
That's exactly right. Good job.
51 games. Math. I finally got one of those equations. Mrs. Roseberry. Now she's Mrs. Green. My 7th grade math teacher will be really, really proud of me. But yeah, it's just like at some point, like the decision making has to become better with Jalen. I think that's where I get most frustrated because his poor decision making is hurting his availability. And the major positive that he brings you right now is on the defensive end. And if he's not on the floor, he doesn't help you there. So I still have all of the Jalen Suggs stock. I know there's a lot of people that are like completely out, and some people on Twitter, maybe I retweeted a poll today that Brandon Kravitz put up about where are you with Jalen Suggs? And sometimes I just retweet polls because I know that we have a really diehard, like followers on Twitter, and that poll is going to get a lot of engagement and give us a better sample size of that data. So I know where people stand. But I retweeted that, and people were like, you guys need to relax. I'm like, I'm totally fine. If you're selling your Suggs stock, you can send it to me. I'll log into TD Ameritrade right now and buy all the Suggs stock there is. Like, I'm still very, very high on the guy, but I do understand why people are concerned. But 51 NBA games, let's calm down.
100% agree. And I just want to give Jalen credit for one thing, okay? I said credit, but I don't want to harp on him for this. His first injury this year was not his fault. Let's be very clear. That was Spencer Dinwiddie's fault in the preseason, okay?
Truth.
Jalen, that wasn't on you. But let's tone it down, dial it back. We need you healthy, bro.
Big time. All right, let's look ahead just to the remaining games of the week. So coming up on Thursday, so when you guys are listening to this, so Kevin is going to be on his way to Orlando tomorrow night for the home game against the Golden State Warriors. This is going to be your first time seeing the Warriors live, right?
I've never seen I saw the Warriors pre-Steph, like way back in the day.
I mean these Warriors.
Yes,
sorry.
I've never seen Steph. He's like the only like the upper tier NBA legend that I haven't seen that's played in my lifetime. Like I've literally seen all the other ones. Like, Shaq. I've seen LeBron probably more than any non-Magic
Michael
player.
Jordan?
LeBron, and I saw Michael Jordan when he was with the Wizards. Yeah, early 2000s.
That's not really the same, but
no, not the same. But I still saw him. Saw Kobe, like all the way down those like the top tier, like those top 10. Steph's the last one, so I'm excited to check that off the list.
That's awesome. Have you seen Clay, or is this like you've seen the Warriors before, but not with Steph? Okay,
nope.
Yeah, that's exciting. I saw them in Orlando during that 2015-2016 season when they went 73-9. So that was that no, that was the 16-17 season after they lost the title to the Cavs. Then they went 15-16. Yeah, they went 73-9, lost the finals.
Then they lost. Yeah.
And then they lost in the finals to the Cavs. So 15-16. For some reason, I thought it was before that. But that night, I signed for my season tickets for the 16-17 season. That's why I got confused.
There we go.
Anyways, we play the Sacramento Kings on Saturday. Rare early Saturday game for the Magic. That's going to tip off at 5 o'clock. Do we remember why that is an early game? Did we ever figure that out?
I don't know that we did. I've not seen anything that explains why. It's very strange to me.
I don't ever remember there being a 5 o'clock Saturday game. I've seen a handful of early Sunday games,
right?
But never a Saturday. So that's pretty interesting. I believe the Kings, they're going to be playing without De'Aaron Fox.
Looks like it, yeah.
So I mean, they still got Davion Mitchell and Kevin's boy Keegan Murray.
That's right.
Still got Domantas Sabonis, so it's still going to be a tough win, but it makes it a little bit more manageable without De'Aaron Fox. Kevin, do you think we pick up a win to close out the week here?
Yeah, I think we win one of these two. I'd like to think, maybe both. Here's the thing. I did want to talk about this Golden State game. I know we're coming up on an hour here, but this is an interesting one. Like, I really don't know how this is going to go, and I know it sounds weird because it's Golden State, but they've lost 3 in a row. They lost 3 in a row. They lost to Oklahoma City, Detroit, and then Miami. On Tuesday, they lost to Miami. So on the one hand, you're like, oh, well, great. They're just going to, bounce back with a vengeance in Orlando on Thursday. But on the other hand, you can go, they're reeling right now. Like they're losing to bad teams and maybe confidence
They almost lost
low.
to Charlotte before that, I think. But
they did lose to Charlotte. That was it wasn't OKC, it was Charlotte.
Charlotte,
they lost to
Detroit, and Miami.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah, so their confidence might be low. They might be having some, issues gelling as a team. Whatever it is, I don't know. I don't watch the Warriors.
Chemistry issues. But, one guy did knock out another guy a few weeks ago. I don't know how you get over that really quickly.
Yeah, so again, I don't know what's going to happen at this game. Like let's not forget, we beat them last year, right? Don't forget that. Which also, by the way, remember that we won that game and then Draymond talked about that game and he only scored like 7 points in that game, that whole thing. So for all those reasons, I really want to win on Thursday night against the Warriors. But either way, whenever a team like the Warriors or the Lakers or whoever comes to town, there's just a different buzz in the building. But hopefully the pro Magic buzz is enough to will the team to a victory, but we'll see.
All right, so I do think we win the game against Sacramento. You have to win 2 out of your first 10 games. Like if you're 2-8 or whatever, I get that. But this is the 2-week homestand that we talked about. When the schedule came out. Although it's not an easy schedule by any means, but 2 weeks at home, like this is your chance to get some practice time in. To get some guys healthy. It's 7 games in 14 nights. You don't have any back-to-backs. So you just got to try to get some guys back as well during this home stretch. And I think we can talk about that too. But just looking at this homestand. So November 3rd versus the Warriors, November 5th versus the Kings, November 7th versus the Rockets, November 9th versus the Mavericks, November 11th versus the Suns, November 14th versus the Hornets, November 16th versus Minnesota. So Golden State, Sacramento, Houston, Dallas, Phoenix, Charlotte, Minnesota. In my estimation, the games that I think the Magic can win any game on any given night, such is the nature of the NBA. Every single one of these are winnable games, but if I'm looking this team in the mirror right now and I'm being honest with myself, these are the games that I think the Magic should have a realistic chance of winning. Sacramento, Houston, Charlotte, and Minnesota. Golden State, Dallas, Phoenix, I'm pretty comfortable in saying that those are losses. The Magic could win those games, but I do think the Magic have a realistic chance of going 4-3 on this homestand, which, as far as homestands go, isn't incredible. That would be a massive success for the Magic to go 4-3 on this 7-game homestand. I know they could easily go 1-6, 2-5, 3-4, but for me, I'm not ready to give up on this team completely on this season. So I'm going to say the Magic find a way to go 4-3 on this road trip. Maybe you win a game that you should lose. Maybe you lose a game that you should win. I'm going to go 4-3. I'm choosing to be an eternal optimist right now. And for my mental health, I need the Magic to go 4-3. So I'm sticking to that. That's my story, and I am sticking to it.
Okay, here's what I'm going to say.
I know what you're going to say, and I'm not going to have anything to be able to counter it.
You don't know what I'm going to say, because I'm throwing a curveball at you, okay? Here's what I'm going to say. This isn't a knee-jerk reaction, but it might not be. These 7 games are going to define the season.
Oh,
they are.
That does not make me excited at all.
It shouldn't, but it could, okay? Because here's the deal. If they go 1-6 or something like that on this homestand, I mean, statistically, you look at it. I know statistically it's not over. Like the Magic have crawled out of holes worse than this before. Obviously, 2019 team, a great example of that. Went on the great run in the last third of the season, made the playoffs. Anything's possible. But if you go, 1-6 on this homestand,
you're sitting at 2-13.
2-13, exactly. That's where you go. Because at that point, you're almost a quarter of the way through the season. So, all that to say, there's a lot riding on this. We're going to figure out who this team is over the next 2 weeks. And I know all the caveats about the injuries. I know we're not going to be fully healthy through these 7 games. And though we think we might get some guys back here at some point during this homestand, but not everybody. And so the idea of not doing well on this homestand, or even not doing mediocre on this homestand scares me for the same reasons that you mentioned. Like, I'm not ready to give up on this team. I'm not ready to give up on this season. I don't want that. I'm not pro tanking. I want this team to compete. I want this team to make the play in. I want all of that. But in 2 weeks, we're going to see where this team is. I hope it's better, but I have no idea at this point.
So I don't want to dive like too deeply into this, but like, the Wednesday against the Mavericks. So that's a week from now. So the last we heard, like, Gary was, starting to do like basketball activities, like wasn't going through like any of the full court stuff. The Magic played in Oklahoma City, Tuesday night, last game of a couple game road trip. I'm guessing they didn't practice today. Maybe they practice Friday.
And Gary traveled, by the way, for this
Gary
road
did
trip,
travel. Gary did travel. Jalen also traveled, and we saw him. He missed the first game of the road trip, but played obviously against Oklahoma City. Gary did travel, which is usually a good sign that guys are getting back to being able to return. Usually they stay home because they have more opportunities to rehab at home than they would on the road. So the idea is continue to rehab those guys, get them back as soon as possible. We've also seen 2 Instagram stories in the last 2 or 3 days of Markelle Fultz posting photos of just his feet. Really strange that we're talking about feet pics on this episode, but out of the soft boot that has been on his left foot. So to me, that says that Markelle Fultz should be pretty close to returning. He should come back, I think, in kind of the later part of this road trip. I think that Dallas game is probably the earliest that we'll see. They want to get some practice time in, kind of get some of the conditioning back. My hope would be that he has been doing some conditioning during this time, if that's on the bike or swimming, whatever it is with the broken toe. Jonathan Isaac is really the big question mark for me. When he wasn't ready to start training camp, this was kind of like, all right, he's not going to be back for the start of the season. This is kind of that next window where maybe he comes back during that time. Now, we haven't heard anything about Jonathan Isaac. We have nothing to go off of here. But if there was a time to get him reintegrated, playing 5-on-5, I think the Lakeland Magic just had their media day, so I don't know how much 5-on-5 activity the Lakeland Magic have been doing. I believe when Markelle Fultz was getting ready to come back, he spent maybe some time practicing with the Lakeland Magic, if I remember that correctly. I could be thinking of someone else. But this is really the first window in the season where we're like, they're going to be home for 2 weeks. They're going to be able to get some practices in, which is going to be huge for this team. With the amount of travel they've been doing and the fact that they missed 2 days, they basically missed half of training camp due to Hurricane Ian. I don't think we can overstate that either. This is a team that, even from the beginning of training camp, has not had a lot of time to practice together to clean up some of these things, like the turnovers. The rebounding is getting a little bit better, but if you get those guys back Wednesday, the 9th, versus Dallas, this team is just going to be super energized, and maybe you're able to rattle off a couple of wins just off of adrenaline alone. But like, reinforcements are coming. They should be coming at some point, and then we should see the team to start to pick up a couple of other wins here. The last point that I want to make about the schedule, Kevin, you talked about the fact that if you go 1-6 during this homestand, then all of a sudden you're sitting at 2-13, and then all of a sudden you're on the road at Chicago, at Indiana, versus Philly, at Brooklyn, versus Atlanta, at Cleveland, at Toronto, home for Milwaukee, home for the Clippers, home for Toronto, home for Atlanta, Boston, Atlanta. Like, this game, I mean, these games after this homestand, you've got Chicago, Indiana, and then it just becomes like a month long, another gauntlet for the Magic. So I'm right there with you. It might be a little bit early to say that this 7-game homestand kind of could define the season, and it can. Let's say you win, 4 out of these 7, games, and then you're sitting at 5-10. Maybe you might be able to win against Chicago on the road. You got a couple of games against Indiana, who, you should be beatable. There's an opportunity that, you could be sitting like, I don't know, 4 or 5 games under 500 at the end of November, which for the Magic would be massive, and getting guys back. So, man, it really feels like the season could go either way in the next 2 weeks here.
Yeah, that's That's the part that scares me, But hey, this is the beauty of sports. It's the best drama on the planet, No one knows how it's going to go. And so, we'll just buckle up and hope for the best, I guess.
Buckle up, folks. But that's going to do it for this episode. I appreciate producer Kevin stopping by. For producer Kevin and Jonathan Osborne, this has been the Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya. Thanks for listening to the Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!